who was Lucy, and how did a creature just over 3 feet tall come to be seen as the starting point of human civilization? Roughly 3.2 million years ago, in the dusty red heat of sub-Saharan Africa, a strange primate emerged. Not a monkey, not quite human either, but this species, Australopithecus afarensis, took one of the most important steps in evolutionary history, standing upright and walking on 2 legs. Among thousands of fossils unearthed by scientists, one individual changed our entire understanding of human ancestry. Her name is Lucy, the most complete fossil skeleton of an early human ancestor, discovered in Ethiopia in 1974. Her bowl-shaped pelvis, inward-angled thigh bones, and repositioned foramen magnum, the hole where the spine connects to the skull, all point to one thing: Lucy walked upright. This was the first time a creature stood on 2 legs, not to intimidate a predator, but to survive, evolve, and eventually rule the planet. Australopithecus afarensis, not quite human, but the blueprint for humanity. Standing just around 3 to 4 feet tall and weighing between 65 to 100 pounds, Australopithecus afarensis looked more like a chimp than a modern human. But don't be fooled by appearances. Its brain, about 400 to 500 cubic centimeters, only 1/3 the size of ours, was already showing the earliest signs of neurological and cognitive development. One of the biggest breakthroughs? Stone tools. Early evidence shows that these hominins deliberately smashed rocks to create sharp edges, tools used for cutting meat, breaking bones, or stripping sinew. They weren't refined or standardized, but they marked a huge leap. Our ancestors were learning to act with purpose to shape their world. At first, humans didn't invent fire. They just learned how to keep it going. They captured it from wildfires or lightning strikes and figured out how to maintain it overnight, storing hot embers in small pits. That simple act was a biological game changer. Fire meant warmth, protection from predators, cooked food, fewer parasites, and easier digestion, all of which helped fuel the rapid growth of our brains. Back then, the menu included wild fruits, roots, seeds, insects, and meat from scavenged carcasses. But once they had tools, early humans leveled up. They cracked bones for marrow, sliced open organs, and made use of every part of the animal. A brilliant survival tactic, especially in a brutal race for resources against hyenas, eagles, and other scavengers. Even without language, Australopithecus afarensis lived in small groups, moving with the availability of food and showing signs of social care. Some skeletons show healed injuries, evidence that these early hominins helped each other, possibly hinting at the first sparks of nurturing behavior in our evolutionary story. From Lucy to Homo habilis, the rise of the handy human. Over time, Australopithecus gave way to Homo habilis, an early human species with a bigger brain, around 600 to 700 centimeters cubed, better mobility, and more refined tool-making skills. This era marked the emergence of right-handedness, memory for food locations, and basic hunting strategies. Their bodies also evolved: longer necks, smaller jaws, and reduced teeth size, all adaptations to a higher energy diet, especially meat and bone marrow. There's no such thing as an overnight leap in evolution. But Lucy and Australopithecus afarensis laid the solid foundation for everything that came after. Walking upright, using hands with purpose, making the first tools, and mastering fire. From those humble beginnings, the human journey began, not with a miraculous leap, but with small, powerful steps across the African soil. Part 2. The Rise of Homo erectus. Homo erectus emerged around 2 million years ago in East Africa. This was the first human species to show clear physical and behavioral similarities to Homo sapiens. They stood about 5 to 6 feet tall and weighed between 100 to 145 pounds. Their brain volume ranged from 700 to 1,100 centimeters cubed. larger than Homo habilis and approaching that of modern humans. The key breakthrough? Mobility. Homo erectus didn't stay in one place. Archaeological evidence shows they migrated out of Africa into Asia through the Levant corridor. Traces of their presence have been found in Dmanisi, Georgia, Trinil, Java, Indonesia, Nagandong, and Jakutian, China. They were the first human species to cross continental boundaries. This ability to migrate was closely tied to fire control and tool innovation. Homo erectus crafted distinctive Acheulean stone tools, symmetrical hand axes with sharp edges, typically made from flint or chert. These tools revealed their ability to plan ahead, coordinate two-handed movements, and pass down techniques through generations. Unlike earlier Oldowan tools, Acheulean axes were highly standardized, indicating a deeper understanding of shape, function, and imitation. Fire was no longer just a natural phenomenon to be feared or avoided. Homo erectus learned how to maintain it for extended periods. This is evidenced by layers of ash, burn marks, and fire-heated stones found in caves like Gesher Benot Yaakov, Israel, and Zhoukoudian, China. Fire allowed them to stay active after dark, cook food, neutralize toxins, soften tough plant matter, improve calorie absorption, and ease digestion, ultimately fueling brain growth and boosting physical energy. Homo erectus groups likely lived in small bands or flexible foraging communities. Toolmaking required the sharing of skills, indicating the presence of non-verbal communication methods, including gestures, vocal sounds, and behavior modeling. Certain anatomical features, such as the position of the larynx, the structure of the hyoid bone, and breath control, suggest that Homo erectus may have developed a complex vocal communication system, a foundation for language. Language wasn't just a tool for communication. It played a key role in building social structures, teaching skills, sharing memories, and forging group identity. The presence of seasonal base camps, centralized tool-making areas, and signs of group surveillance point to a higher level of social organization than seen in earlier human species. Additionally, there's evidence that Homo erectus may have engaged in group hunting rather than merely scavenging. Cut marks on animal bones, tools found nearby, and signs of organized butchering sites all suggest that they approached prey intentionally, using strategy, coordination, and role assignment within the group. From an evolutionary standpoint, Homo erectus had the longest lifespan of any species in the Homo genus, lasting around 1.5 million years, far surpassing Homo sapiens. They were the only human species to survive across 3 continents for such an extended period, laying the foundation for later evolutionary branches like Homo heidelbergensis, the Denisovans, and Homo sapiens. In summary, Homo erectus marks the first major phase in human evolution, characterized by intercontinental migration, technological control, sustained fire use, the development of communication, and optimized survival skills. They weren't Homo sapiens, but the essential traits of modern humanity began to take shape during their time. Part 3. The Neanderthal Enigma. Over 400,000 years ago, Homo neanderthalensis, commonly known as Neanderthals, emerged in Europe and Western Asia. Though classified as a distinct species from Homo sapiens, Neanderthals shared many similarities in anatomy, behavior, and brain structure. Neanderthals had large skulls, with an average cranial capacity of about 1,400 to 1,600 centimeters, larger than the modern human average. Their skulls extended toward the back, with low foreheads and prominent brow ridges. Physically, they were stocky and muscular, with short limbs and broad chests, adaptations suited to the frigid climate of Ice Age Europe. Their dense bones and powerful musculature helped them retain body heat and generate the physical strength necessary for close-range hunting. Archaeological evidence shows that Neanderthals developed the Mousterian culture, which featured more advanced stone tools than the earlier Acheulean period. They mastered the Levallois technique, allowing them to shape sharp blades from stone cores, and crafted tools such as knives, scrapers, and pointed spears. Additionally, They used materials like bone, wood, and natural adhesives such as tree resin to reinforce their tools, demonstrating multi-material crafting skills and an understanding of natural properties. Neanderthals were active hunters, targeting large animals like bison, deer, and woolly mammoths. Fractures found on Neanderthal skeletons match trauma patterns seen in modern-day bullfighters, suggesting they hunted at close range, possibly with handheld spears. Some archaeological sites, such as La Côte de Saint-Brelade, provide evidence that they used terrain to trap prey, indicating spatial planning and group coordination skills. Around 40,000 years ago, however, Neanderthals disappeared from the fossil record. There is no clear evidence of war, mass violence, or widespread disease. Leading theories for their extinction include climate change. Rapid environmental shifts during the end of the Pleistocene led to ecological instability, reducing available prey and altering vegetation, directly impacting Neanderthals' diet and survival. Competition with Homo sapiens. When Homo sapiens migrated into Europe from Africa around 45,000 years ago, they brought more advanced tools, orignation culture, more efficient social organization, and developed language capabilities, putting Neanderthals at a disadvantage in the struggle for resources. Interbreeding and absorption. Neanderthals didn't completely vanish. Some were absorbed into the Homo sapiens gene pool through interbreeding. Genetic analysis reveals that non-African modern humans carry 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA, especially in genes related to immunity, skin, hair, and metabolism. In short, the disappearance of the Neanderthals wasn't caused by a single factor. It was the result of a complex interplay between climate change, biological competition, and internal population limitations. Although extinct as a species, Neanderthals never truly vanished. Their genetic legacy lives on in billions of people today. This proves that Neanderthals weren't a failed branch of evolution, but rather a parallel path marked by intelligence, survival skills, and a lasting impact on the modern human genome. Part 4. The Rise of Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens emerged around 300,000 years ago in East Africa. The earliest fossils were discovered at Jebel Irhoud in Morocco, dating back to about 315,000 years. Anatomically modern, Homo sapiens had a rounded skull, a high forehead, a prominent chin, and an average brain volume of about 1,350 centimeters cubed. Unlike earlier Homo species, Homo sapiens had a brain structure with highly developed frontal and parietal regions, areas associated with planning, language, imagination, and symbolic thinking. This formed the foundation for what scientists call the Great Leap Forward, a dramatic cognitive shift that occurred between 70,000 and 50,000 years ago. During this period, archaeological evidence points to a sudden emergence of complex behaviors. Cave art, shell jewelry, carvings of humans and animals, and bone instruments. Examples include the Chauvet Cave in France, Blombos Cave in South Africa, and bone flutes from Geisenklosterle in Germany, all reflecting abstract thinking and the ability to pass down symbolic ideas across generations. Homo sapiens' language capabilities were no longer limited to basic sounds. Based on the structure of the hyoid bone, the position of the larynx, and the presence of the FOXP2 gene, researchers believe early humans could articulate complex sounds, develop grammar, and build languages with structured syntax. Language became a powerful tool for sharing advanced knowledge, crafting myths, establishing social norms, and shaping cultural identity. Adaptive flexibility was the key to Homo sapiens' success. They were able to thrive in rainforests, grasslands, deserts, and tundras by adjusting their hunting techniques, crafting suitable tools, and modifying their lifestyles. They also quickly learned to use local resources, everything from flint to tree bark and mineral pigments. They mastered the use of fire, crafted clothing from animal hides, built shelters from bones and skins, and maintained stable group structures even in harsh environments. This adaptability is evidenced at sites like Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, where archaeologists have uncovered long-term campsites, fertility figurines, and traces of complex social networks. In short, Homo sapiens were the first human species to combine modern anatomy, an efficient brain, symbolic behavior, and complex social organization. Their rise didn't just mark a global expansion, it signaled the dawn of human civilization. Part 5. The Lessons of the Past. Human evolution hasn't followed a straight path. It's more like a branching tree. Many branches have been cut off. Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and Homo naledi, each once adapted and thriving, but all eventually went extinct. Today, Homo sapiens is the only human species left, but that survival isn't guaranteed forever. Our continued existence isn't because we're the strongest or smartest, but because we happen to align with the right adaptive traits at the right moments. From this long evolutionary journey, 3 key lessons emerge. Evolution is a continuous process. Biological structure, cognitive abilities, social behavior, even culture are not fixed. The human body and brain are constantly changing, shaped by natural selection, environmental shifts, and social pressures. Consider these examples. Homo erectus survived for over 1.5 million years, but never developed symbolic thinking. Neanderthals had superior physical strength and large brains, but lacked the flexibility to adapt to climate shifts and competition. Homo sapiens is not fully evolved, we are still evolving. Today, changes are happening at genetic, physiological, and behavioral levels, influenced by urbanization, technology, nutrition, and lifespan. Evolution doesn't stop, and it has no final destination. Climate change is a matter of survival. Many human species didn't go extinct because they were weak, but because the environment changed faster than they could adapt. Ice ages, shifts in vegetation, and fluctuations in rainfall and temperature transformed entire ecosystems. For example, Homo erectus vanished from Asia after prolonged droughts. Neanderthals collapsed as Europe's climate rapidly swung between cold and warm cycles. Denisovans survived only in isolated regions with stable conditions. Today, Homo sapiens faces an unprecedented rate of climate change, driven by our own actions. Rising sea levels, resource scarcity, loss of biodiversity, and emerging diseases are all part of the fallout. The question isn't whether the climate will change, but whether modern humans can keep up. Adaptation and cooperation are keys to survival. No human species has ever survived alone. Since the hunter-gatherer days, teamwork, information sharing, role coordination, and collective memory has been essential for Homo sapiens to overcome the challenges of survival. Social learning allowed skills to be passed down through generations. Language and symbolic thinking made it possible to build large groups beyond blood ties. Cumulative culture helped reduce risk by drawing on ancestral knowledge. Today, global issues like pandemics, environmental crises, and resource conflicts cannot be solved by individuals or small groups alone. Large-scale cooperation, knowledge sharing, and collective coordination remain vital, just as they were when early humans crossed the Sahara or sailed to Australia. The past makes one thing clear: no human species is eternal. Existence is temporary, entirely dependent on how well we respond to change. From Lucy to Homo sapiens, it has been a relentless process of natural selection. Every step forward paid for by the death of billions. If Homo sapiens hopes to survive another 10,000 years, the single most important lesson is this: don't repeat the mistakes of those who went extinct. Next, let's explore what can we learn from extinct humans. Modern humans are not the only human species that ever existed on Earth. For most of evolutionary history, Homo sapiens coexisted with several other human species. These species walked on 2 legs, used tools, hunted in groups, and may have buried their dead, Some lived in freezing climates, others thrived in tropical forests or isolated islands. These species include the Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, Homo luzonensis, Homo naledi, and others. Neanderthals were first identified in 1856 in the Neander Valley in Germany. Their skulls had distinctive shapes compared to modern humans, yet were similar enough to be classified under the genus Homo. Later discoveries confirmed they were not an exception, but part of a diverse human lineage. Denisovans were identified from a tiny finger bone found in Denisova Cave in Siberia. Although physical remains are scarce, their DNA was successfully extracted and revealed a distinct species that interbred with both Neanderthals and modern humans. Homo floresiensis, discovered on Flores Island, Indonesia, stood only about 1 meter tall, with a small brain but the ability to make stone tools. Due to their unusual size and features, they were nicknamed the Hobbit people. Homo luzonensis, found in Calao Cave in the Philippines, had unique anatomical traits, such as primitive teeth and foot bones, suggesting a separate evolutionary branch in Southeast Asia. Homo naledi, discovered deep within the Rising Star Cave system in South Africa, had a brain only 1/3 the size of a modern human's, yet exhibited signs of collective behavior, and possibly even intentional burial, a practice once thought to be exclusive to Homo sapiens. What all these species have in common is that they all belong to the genus Homo. They were all human. They were not Homo sapiens, but they shared a common ancestor. Each species represented a different biological and behavioral variation of a shared evolutionary path. All of these species are now extinct. Only Homo sapiens remain. The causes of extinction will be discussed later, but the outcome is clear. We are the sole surviving branch of what was once a highly diverse evolutionary tree. However, biological disappearance does not mean total absence. Traces of these species still exist in the DNA of modern humans, in the tools they left behind, and in archaeological sites spanning Europe, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and Africa. Through the analysis of fossils, sediments, stone tools, and especially ancient DNA, scientists are reconstructing the behaviors, habitats, and social structures of these extinct humans. Genetic studies show that interbreeding between species occurred multiple times throughout history, contributing to the genetic diversity we see today. Studying them expands our definition of what it means to be human. Until recently, Homo sapiens were considered the sole representatives of humanity, with exclusive traits like cognition, language, and culture. Yet archaeological evidence shows that many of these traits appeared in other species too. Neanderthals made jewelry from shells. Denisovans crafted intricate tools from ivory. Homo naledi may have buried their dead. In conclusion, extinct human species were not bizarre exceptions, but essential parts of the human evolutionary story. Their existence, development, and eventual disappearance provide crucial data for understanding Homo sapiens. Studying them is not about nostalgia. It's a systematic approach to identifying the building blocks of modern humanity. Part 2. Unveiling their world. Neanderthals are the most thoroughly studied extinct human species. They lived in Europe and Western Asia throughout the Ice Age. Their physical features included a short, stocky build, large skulls, strong muscles, and shorter limbs than Homo sapiens. Adaptations that helped retain body heat in cold climates. They had large nasal cavities to warm inhaled air, low foreheads, and prominent brow ridges. Neanderthals used Mousterian-style stone tools, such as scrapers, pointed spear tips, and flake tools crafted from flint, quartz, and local materials. They hunted large animals like mammoths, bison, and reindeer using coordinated group strategies, often utilizing terrain to ambush prey. Evidence shows they used fire for cooking and heating inside caves. Fossil evidence indicates that Neanderthals cared for the injured and elderly, demonstrating social organization and shared responsibility. Some skulls show signs of healed fractures, meaning individuals survived serious injuries thanks to community support. Beyond survival, Neanderthals engaged in symbolic activities. They made shell bead necklaces, used mineral pigments to decorate their bodies or cave walls, and buried their dead with items such as animal bones or flowers. These practices suggest abstract thinking and a concept of death. Homo floresiensis lived on the isolated island of Flores in Indonesia. They stood only about 1 meter tall and had significantly smaller brains than Neanderthals or Homo sapiens, yet still crafted tools, used fire, and hunted dwarf elephants, stegodon. Their small size is an example of island dwarfism, a process where large species evolve into smaller forms due to limited resources and absence of large predators. No complete Denisovan skeleton has been discovered. However, DNA extracted from bones and teeth found in Denisova cave in Siberia shows that they were a distinct branch of the Homo genus, more closely related to Neanderthals than to Homo sapiens. Denisovan genetic traces persist in modern populations across East Asia, Melanesia, and Tibet. Some Denisovan genes, like the EPAS1 variant, are linked to high-altitude adaptation, helping modern humans survive in low-oxygen environments like the Himalayas. Homo naledi was discovered in the Rising Star cave system in South Africa. They exhibited a mix of primitive and modern traits. With a small brain, 465 to 610 cc, their hand and foot structure still allowed for tool use and stable bipedal movement. They lived around 250,000 years ago, contemporaneously with Homo sapiens. The location of their remains deep within the cave suggests they may have intentionally placed their dead in secluded areas, an act often associated with symbolic or ritual behavior. Beyond these species, other extinct human groups, such as Homo erectus and Homo heidelbergensis, also demonstrate widespread behaviors like tool use, group hunting, fire mastery, and seasonal migration. What these species shared was their ability to adapt biologically and behaviorally to specific environments. Neanderthals were optimized for cold climates. Homo floresiensis evolved in isolated island conditions. Denisovans adapted to mountainous terrain. Homo naledi survived in complex cave systems. Socially, extinct humans were not solitary beings. Evidence points to small, structured groups where cooperation, division of labor, and mutual care were present. The survival of elderly or injured individuals implies that the group, not the lone individual, was the basic unit of survival. In terms of tools, there was increasing diversity and refinement over time. Even species with smaller brains, such as Homo floresiensis and Homo naledi, crafted and used tools with purpose. This challenges the assumption that intelligence is solely linked to brain size. Archaeological data shows that archaic humans shared many behaviors with Homo sapiens: hunting, labor division, group care, symbolic expression, and interaction with the environment through tools and fire. However, each species also had distinct traits that reflected unique survival strategies. There is no single model of human. Extinct human species reveal that humanity was once a broad spectrum, not a fixed point. Each form of existence was a variation within a shared evolutionary lineage. Part 3. Lessons from extinction. All ancient human species, except Homo sapiens, are now extinct. The causes of extinction were not due to a single factor, but rather a combination of environmental and biological pressures. Over the past 300,000 years, Earth has undergone multiple cycles of climate instability, including prolonged ice ages and abrupt warming periods. These changes directly impacted vital resources, especially food and habitable environments. For Neanderthals and Denisovans, who lived in temperate and cold regions, melting ice, shifts in humidity, and the decline of large mammals may have disrupted the ecosystems they depended on. As food supplies diminished, competition for survival intensified. However, climate change alone does not explain everything. Interspecies competition is one leading hypothesis, Homo sapiens, with its flexible social structures, advanced language abilities, and efficient communication networks, may have gained strategic advantages in exploiting resources, hunting, and territorial control. The presence of Homo sapiens in the same regions as Neanderthals and Denisovans aligns with the timeline of their decline and disappearance. Larger group sizes and the ability to exchange tools, food, and information across communities may have given Homo sapiens a decisive edge. In contrast, other human species operated in smaller, less adaptable groups that struggled to respond to rapid environmental changes. Another contributing factor may have been disease. As Homo sapiens migrated from Africa into Eurasia, they could have introduced new pathogens to which local hominin populations had no immunity. A similar phenomenon occurred during the 15th century, when Europeans brought smallpox, influenza, and measles to the Americas, killing millions of indigenous people within decades. Geographic isolation also increased the risk of extinction. Homo floresiensis and Homo luzonensis lived on islands such as Flores, Indonesia, and Luzon, Philippines, which are highly vulnerable to volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, or rising sea levels, events that could cut off access to critical resources. Genetic decline was another factor. Species with small, isolated populations were more susceptible to inbreeding and loss of genetic diversity. This reduced their ability to adapt and increased the likelihood of inherited diseases, creating a cycle of weakening and eventual collapse. Altogether, extinction was not a sudden event, but a prolonged process built up over time from climate shifts, interspecies pressures, disease, and declining adaptability. This pattern repeated globally with the same outcome. Homo sapiens remained the only surviving human species. This conclusion serves as a warning. We are now living in the Anthropocene, an era in which human impact has become the dominant force shaping Earth's ecosystems. Climate is changing at an unprecedented rate. Natural environments are being disrupted. Thousands of species go extinct every year. Resources are depleting, and global social systems are under increasing stress. What allowed Homo sapiens to survive in the past was not immunity to danger, but the ability to adapt quickly. Still, our survival depends on the stability of ecosystems. If environmental changes outpace our ability to adapt, modern humans will be no exception to extinction risk. The difference this time is, the primary threat isn't coming from nature, it's coming from us. We have become the dominant force on the planet, but that does not exempt us from the laws of survival. Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, all were intelligent, creative, cooperative beings, yet they vanished. They were not fast enough, numerous enough, or adaptable enough. Their extinction teaches us a profound lesson and raises a critical question for today. Are we walking the same path? Part 4. Our shared legacy. Though ancient human species like the Neanderthals and Denisovans are long extinct, parts of their DNA still live on in us, modern Homo sapiens. People of European and Asian descent carry 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA, while Melanesians and indigenous Australians can carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA. This shows that these ancient humans weren't isolated outliers, but branches of the same evolutionary tree we're part of. Interbreeding between species wasn't just a biological curiosity, it boosted our ability to adapt to the environment. Some genes helped our immune systems fight off unfamiliar viruses and bacteria. Others affected skin pigmentation, helping us better respond to sunlight. A Denisovan gene variant improved oxygen use at high altitudes, vital for survival in places like Tibet. These aren't just symbolic remnants, they're hard biological proof that our survival has been shaped by those who came before us. And if Homo sapiens could interbreed with Neanderthals and Denisovans and produce thriving offspring, then the line between modern and archaic humans gets blurry. Their genes didn't vanish, they live on. So extinction, in this case, doesn't mean total disappearance. It's not just their DNA we inherited. Their social behaviors live on too, burying the dead, caring for the sick, crafting jewelry, and making complex tools. These acts show a deep sense of community, symbolic thinking, and collective memory, the roots of human culture. Ongoing research continues to uncover how ancient genes influence modern traits, from bone structure to immune response. Some of these genes even come with drawbacks, like increased risks for diabetes, lupus, and neurological conditions, showing that our genetic inheritance carries both advantages and burdens. Ultimately, this raises a powerful question about identity. We're not a superior, isolated species. We're the product of hundreds of thousands of years of genetic blending and shared evolution. And that legacy isn't locked away in museums. It lives in our blood, our DNA, our cultural instincts, and the way we connect with one another today. Part 5. The future of humanity. Extinction is not a hypothesis. It is a recurring reality in the evolutionary history of humankind. Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, Homo naledi, Homo luzonensis all once existed, adapted, survived, and developed social behaviors. Yet all of them disappeared. This proves that being human does not guarantee long-term survival. To endure, a species needs more than intelligence. It must also be able to adapt to change, cooperate in groups, and respond swiftly to environmental shifts. The extinction of other human species reveals that intelligence can take many forms. A large brain is not the only requirement. The presence of symbolic behavior, complex tools, social structures, and group care are all signs of intelligence. These traits evolved in several species, but ultimately, they were not enough to prevent extinction. The capacity to create culture, from jewelry and tools to rituals, emerged across different evolutionary branches. However, culture alone did not prevent extinction. This shows that building societies, creating symbols, and abstract thinking do not ensure survival if the environment exceeds the species' adaptive threshold. The survival of Homo sapiens is the exception, not the rule. We are not the pinnacle of evolution, but merely a surviving branch that happened to meet the right ecological and social conditions at a specific moment in time. The human past resembles a densely branched evolutionary tree, most of whose limbs have already broken off. Today, modern humans face similar threats: climate change, loss of biodiversity, resource crises, social instability, and uncontrolled technological advancement. These challenges not only threaten the environment, but directly endanger social structures, food security, and global stability. If we fail to change our approach, Homo sapiens could easily follow the fate of other extinct human species. To avoid that outcome, we must act on 4 fronts: protect our ecosystems, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, restore forests, regulate resource extraction, and maintain ecological balance. Strengthen social adaptability, build sustainable food distribution systems, resilient healthcare networks against pandemics, and education grounded in scientific knowledge rather than ideology. Manage technological impact, develop AI, biotechnology, and digital tools in ways that serve the public good without destabilizing social structures or deepening inequality. Preserve evolutionary memory. Make knowledge about human origins, interspecies interactions, and extinction causes a core part of education, research, and policymaking. Furthermore, understanding humanity's evolutionary origins is not merely symbolic. It is foundational to realizing that we are not a separate, superior entity, but the result of millions of years of interbreeding, migration, and adaptation to diverse environments. The legacy of extinct humans lives on in our genes, behaviors, social structures, and modern consciousness. This awareness expands the concept of humanity. It is no longer limited to Homo sapiens, but includes an extended lineage comprising extinct species that continue to shape our biology and culture. This broader view forces us to think more long-term about ourselves, our planet, and the choices shaping our future. Ultimately, extinct human species are not just subjects of archaeology, they are cautionary tales. They demonstrate that development does not guarantee survival, and that unless we fully understand our ecological and social limits, modern humans may become the next broken branch on the evolutionary tree,